Okay, then I thought that I kind of switched to something a little bit more fun here, and I thought that bring to your attention that, believe it or not, 20%, 9 out of 44 of United States presidents have been business entrepreneurs. Did you know that? I didn't know that. It was very interesting for me when I found that out. And of course, all of them are considered public entrepreneurs. Now, the difference between those entrepreneurship, business or corporate entrepreneurs, you know what is that, right? People that they're involved in business. Public entrepreneurs are people that they come with innovative ideas in government, in government agency, in public sector, all right? And then of course social entrepreneurs. Who can define social entrepreneur for me? Have you heard of that at all? No, that terminology doesn't. Well, for example, Bill Gates, among other things, among the fact that he's obviously a corporate entrepreneur, he's also a social entrepreneur. Social entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs that they care about social issues. It's not only making money and making their OE bigger and bigger. That's not the only thing they're thinking about. They're also thinking about their social responsibilities and what they can give to their society, to the whole world in general, what good they can do. Okay, so those are social entrepreneurs. So anyway, aside the fact that all the presidents, not only in America, everywhere, if you are president, even you are an entrepreneur because you're CEO of this university. Anybody who is a CEO who gets, of course, this is not public, so you will be still considered private entrepreneurs. But if this was a public university, you would be public entrepreneurs.
Well, so we get some public finance as well.
Public finance?
Yeah. We get some public money.
You get some public money?
Yeah, partly.
So that's good.
So we are financed partly privately,
partly. That's good. That's good.
Public funds.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, kind of like in US too. Like a lot of private universities, they get grants from the government. So I think it's pretty much the same situation. So anyway, I start with George Washington. George Washington, before he was president, he actually had his own plantation, and he was a farmer. And then after his presidency was over, he returned to his farm, and he actually started a distillery business with James Anderson, who was a Scottish immigrant in Virginia. So that was the first one, or one of the first ones. Abraham Lincoln, interestingly, was, he was the only president who actually received a patent. He actually invented something, and that was something, a device that could lift river boats over sandbars. He also owned a general store and also ran a law firm. So he really had 3 businesses.
That's interesting.
Yeah, isn't it? The other guy, Warren Harding, he, at the young age of 19, with a few other partners, they purchased a small, struggling newspaper in Ohio called the Marion Star, and his wife, Florence, I guess, helped him a lot to run the business. The other president, Herbert Hoover. Herbert Hoover had a geology degree from Stanford University, and he launched his own mine engineering business, interestingly, in 1908. And his company employed 170.
He's not president, right?
These are all president, yes. You are thinking of the other guy who was the head of FBI.
So it's FBI, yeah.
That was a different person.
What was his name?
No, that was.
Also Hoover, right?
Yes, but it was different.
Okay.
Yeah, and his company had 175,000 workers, and specialized in reorganizing companies that they were failing. So, Franklin Roosevelt, as you know, he had polio and he couldn't walk, and so he, interestingly, he came up with a business that it was called Roosevelt Warm Springs Institute for Rehabilitation, and it's Georgia-based company, still is operating today and serves a great number of people with all kinds of disabilities that they have. And Harry Truman, after serving during World War I, he came to U.S. and opened a men's clothing store in Kansas City, Missouri, with his wartime friend, Eddie Jacobson. And the shop flourished for 3 years, but unfortunately failed. And interestingly, this was the only one I found that his business failed. All of the other presidents' businesses were good. And of course, Jimmy Carter was still alive, very well alive, as a matter of fact. And he was in Navy first, and then he returned from Navy to his family farm, peanut farms, that was doing bad, and then he really made it to be very successful. And then of course he became president. And even today, talking about social entrepreneur, he is one of the biggest social entrepreneurs in the world. He is a president that maybe history would be much kinder to him than people are right now. American people, especially Republicans, they don't like him, but they're mistaken. They don't know what a jewel person he was. He was really, really a good president. Of course I have.
He must be 90 now or so.
He is, and is still active, still, believe it or not, a Habitat for Humanities, he still actually put the brakes, you know, I mean, he actually works, he does. His wife too, Rosalie, together, they're amazing people, they really are. And of course, George Bush, the father, who was graduate of Yale, along with a neighbor, John Overby, formed the Bush Overby Oil Development Company, which they got very rich. I mean, they have the money because of oil. And they merged to another company, and the company called Zapta Petroleum, and he became president of the company. So he was actually, before he became president of the United States, he was the president of his own company. And even the junior, who everybody thought he was dumb, and he really was dumb, sorry. He, even though, which is very surprising, he was the first MBA American president with MBA degree. And of course, people that don't like him, including me, we think that he got the MBA from Yale because of his father, you know, all the money that they gave to the university, so they bought him a degree. But in any event, if you look what he did, then you say, well, he really was not that dumb. Look what he did. He bought a Major League Baseball, Texas Ranger, that's the name of the league. In 1998, he sold that, how much he bought it? He bought it for $600,000. He sold it for $15 million. That is 2,400% return. So certainly he was not dumb when it came to investment.
But when did he buy it?
He bought it in, let's see, I think I had that. He bought it in the 60s, late 60s or something, so 70s maybe.
So it was like 30 years.
Yeah, something like that.
So he earned that in 30 years.
In 30 years, but 2,400% return. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's an amazing amount of money. And of course, Mitt Romney, which did not become a president, but obviously if he would have, he was a real businessman. And no, he's not. And I believe the best candidate won the election. That was President Obama, which I also think he is not only a public entrepreneur, but also a social entrepreneur. I think he will be one of the biggest presidents in the U.S. history. Not only because he was the first black president, but also because he's really a good guy. He really is. Okay.
But Mitt Romney, probably he does some business, huh?
He's
or
back.
He did some business.
Oh yeah, you know, it's really interesting that how American system works. Here, the day before election, his name is there, possible president, most important person in the country, maybe in the world. Next day, he's nobody. I mean, he's back to his business, of course, but I mean, in terms of the publicity.
Is he senator or what is he?
No, he's not. That's the interesting thing.
Oh.
You know, if people like, for example, last election.
They're all senators, I mean.
They,
almost, right?
well, he's not.
These candidates, I mean.
He was
In
governor.
the past.
In the
governors,
governor.
yeah.
He was a
So
governor.
he's governor, no.
Not anymore, no.
No.
Right now he has no position. He
But
just
he
back-
was governor, right?
He was governor. He was governor of Massachusetts. Right. So that's kind of interesting. So anyway, that's what I had for you, but I'm willing to, now that I know how limited, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be, I take that word back, but now that I know that you are not quite up in finance and accounting yet, I'll be happy to answer especially accounting related questions, especially questions related to the most important formula in business. By the way, what is the name of this statement? Anybody?
Balance sheet.
Balance sheet. This is your balance sheet. This is the most important financial statement, even more important than income statement, even more important than cash flow statement. This is the most important financial statement. I'm actually writing an accounting book myself. I have written 7 chapters and I have 7 more chapters to go. And in my book, I call this cardinal rule of accounting. Most important rule of accounting. And then when I wrote that, then I thought maybe cardinal is not, maybe I should call it priest, because priest is more important than cardinal, right? Maybe priest rule of accounting, but that won't make sense, I guess. And then I was thinking jokingly to myself, maybe I should call it Ayatollah rule of accounting. You know Ayatollah, right? Ayatollah is the big, whatever, in Islamic.
Ayatollah is a religion leader, right?
That's correct. Ayatollah is equivalent to Pope, I guess. So, but I call this cardinal rule of accounting, but I thought, that's not even enough. It's a very important thing. Everything in business, everything in finance, everything in accounting, everything in entrepreneurship, everything goes back to this formula. Everything. Extremely important. You must be able to not only prepare this statement, but also to understand it and to analyze it. That part of the finance I can answer questions, by the way. I'll be happy to talk about analyzing financial statement, ratio analysis, horizontal analysis, vertical analysis, those kind of things I can answer the questions. But anyway, anything else, I'll be happy to talk to you.
Okay, thanks.
My pleasure.
So, we have some questions, comments, whatever, ideas.
Don't be shy. When I was a student, I was never shy to ask questions. I'm looking for,
It's
oh, it's down there, okay. So, no question is a stupid question. If it is a question, it's not a stupid. Always remember that. Questions are always good.
The thing about the analysis, because I've taken up accounting for so long, I never heard of...
Financial, horizontal,
yeah,
vertical?
those type of...
Okay, have you heard of ratio analysis?
Yeah, but the vertical...
Horizontal analysis and vertical analysis are, let me write. Okay, when we say horizontal, like horizontal is like this, correct? So what we do in horizontal analysis is that we, let's say we talk about revenues, okay? So we compare revenues horizontally. That is, let's say 2000, let's say it started 2008, then 09, then 10, then 11, then 12. So we compare our revenue, or for that matter, every single financial item in financial statement. In balance sheet, let's say we compare our cash. What was our situation of cash in 2008 as opposed to 2012, and every single year. And then a kind of horizontal analysis is trend analysis. So when you look at all of that, is a trend. You see a trend. The trend may be something like this, could be this, could be this, and it could be this. I mean, trend could be anything. So that's trend analysis. If you only compare 2 years, 2 at a time, it's a simple horizontal analysis. But then if you do more than 2 years, that would be a trend analysis. Now, vertical analysis, on the other hand, okay, so you compare, let's say in balance sheet, you compare everything. Let's say cash, let's say your accounts receivable, let's say your unearned revenue. Okay, you compare every one of these with your final figure here, which is your total assets. So what is the percentage of your cash to your total asset? What is the percentage of your unearned revenue or accounts payable with your total assets? So that's vertical analysis. And then ratio analysis is that ratio basically, the definition of ratio is the relationship of two figures. For example, the ratio of women to men here right now happen to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1 to 8, right? And there are thousands of ratios you can find right in this room. Ratio of people that are wearing glasses as opposed to people that they are wearing contact lenses, or they're wearing no glasses. Ratio of people that are wearing black as opposed to people that are wearing white. All kinds of ratios. The same thing here in your financial statement. You can calculate all kinds of ratios depending on your need. And these ratios are very, 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 very useful. I do actually run a financial statement analysis seminar privately in my consulting business. And I do have a lot of CPAs and lawyers and people like that they just come because they have either forgotten some of the basic, or they need, I'm sure here too, people need continuing education credit, so otherwise they lose their license. So they have to come, to those. And they are very successful seminars, like when, I don't run it too often, I don't have that much time, but whenever I run it, I have at least 30 people signing up. And these are all, and some of them are CEOs and managers and presidents of either their own company or some other companies and so on. But financial statement analysis is it's a very important thing in both in accounting and finance. So that's what we mean. By the way, since I use it as an example, anybody knows what is unearned revenue?
Yeah, money that we're supposed to get. That's unpaid yet, so it's...
What kind of account is it? Is it asset, liability, or what?
It's an asset, and it's accounts receivable. Basically, it goes in accounts receivable, money that we're supposed to get paid in future months or future year or something.
You are on the right track, almost. Anybody else has more idea?
You're stuck.
Stocks?
Yeah. Like the goods you have, but you didn't sell it yet.
No, that's inventory. No, good guess though, that is an asset, no. You are right, but you are explaining more the other side of party. You're talking about the prepaid item. Prepaid and unearned are opposite of each other. For example, let's say you give me money, let's say, $3,000 in advance, okay, for 3 days consulting. Let's say I agree to come to your company and consult with you for 3 days, but then I want the money in advance. So you give me $3,000 in advance, okay? So you give it to me in advance. For you is a prepaid item, and that is an asset. For me, however, guess what it is? It's a liability. Why? Because I got the money, I haven't done anything yet. You follow what I'm saying? I got the money, but I haven't done the job yet. So let's say after 1 day, my unearned revenue, my liability goes down.
Right.
You got that?
Yeah.
So you were right, you were talking about the other part of it. So remember, prepaid and unearned are opposite of each other. But that was good. So I can't put enough emphasis. If I want to leave one thing for you, of course, in addition to entrepreneurship, if I want to leave one thing for you in terms of finance and accounting, is that you've got to know your balance sheet. And you've got to be able to recognize your account. You've got to be able to read balance sheet. If not prepare, at least read and understand it. It's very, very important. While we are at that, the other two important statement is income statement, right? What is that made of? Who can tell me?
Only assets, I think.
No, income statement.
Income statement.
Assets are here.
Not balance sheet, this is income statement.
So what goes to income statement? What do you think? Think about just logically about the name of it. Income statement.
Was it the cash flowing, the cash that we just receive on our account, or?
Well, income statement are made of two things: revenues
And
and then expenses.
yeah, okay.
If you subtract revenues from your expenses, you get your net income. That's your income statement. Revenues and your expenses. If you subtract your expenses from your revenues, you get your net income. So any business, your revenue is, let's say you're selling, whatever you're selling your knowledge, consulting, you're selling books, you have a bookstore, whatever you're selling, okay? That's your revenue. And then in America, we have a good statement. I'm sure in every one of the countries you have similar statement like that. We say, it takes money to make money. If you think about your own language, your own country, I'm sure you have something similar to that. It takes money to make money. So I cannot just make $3,000 a day if I don't spend some money, right? If I'm selling this glass, if I'm selling this to you for $1, I probably bought it for 20, 30 cents. That's my expense, one of my expenses. All right, so when you subtract all of your expenses from your revenues, you get your net income. All right, so those are two important financial statements. Of course, the third one is cash flow statement. Anybody can define cash flow statement? What is cash flow? What information cash flow statement could give us that income statement and balance sheet cannot?
The actual money you have to spend.
The actual money that you have to spend.
Not that you have to earn or receive from other people, but you actually have it.
Okay, yeah, you're in the right track. Cash flow statement tells us basically where the money comes from, where the money goes. What are the sources of our cash? What are the uses of cash? Just cash. Remember, none of these two other statements will give us that information. It tells that in balance sheet we have a total asset, but it doesn't tell us where it came from, where did it go. The details of it, right? It doesn't tell us. And there are three sources for them: operating, financing, and investing. Those are the sources of cash. In other words, they come either from operation of the business or from financing, that is either L or OE, or from investing. So those are the sources. But the reason we need cash flow statement, because as important as income statement is, it does. Let's say your net income shows $10 million. True or false? That means you have $10 million cash. True or false? I repeat my question. Your net income is $10 million.
No, it's capital included in those 10 million.
That is one thing, but what other thing makes it false? 10 million net income, that doesn't mean you have 10 million cash. Why not? Because you have, when you prepare your balance sheet, this is an accrual basis of accounting. That means it's not everything cash, okay? Like you have accounts receivable coming to you, right? So accounts receivable is not cash, right? Or you have you have to make some adjusting at the end of the year. So, in order to know exactly what happened to cash, we really need cash flow statement. Now, balance sheet and income statement were required from publicly traded company by SEC, Security Exchange Commission, United States, which I'm sure in all of your countries we have similar agency that they require from publicly traded company to show their financial statement. Up to when I was MBA students about 25, 30 years ago, at that time, then they actually made cash flow statement also a required. In other words, because there were some major company. I remember there was a company that you probably have never heard of the name of that company. My youngest students, they don't know that. Although some of my MBA students, that I have a BA student my own age, so they remember that. There was a company in America 25, 30 years ago called Grant. Grant was, have you heard of Target? Have you heard of Sears? Right, this major company, Walmart, right? Grant was like that. It was a huge company. Very successful. Overnight, bankruptcy went out of business. Why? They had good income. Their income statement was positive. Balance sheet was okay. They had a problem here. They had a problem here. They did not have enough cash to pay their, what are the major objective? What is the purpose of a business? Who can tell me? Make money, right? Dollar or euro, I don't know how to do the euro, sorry. Okay, that is the major, right? What is number 2? Purpose of business, objective.
Keep in business.
Remain solvent. Remain solvent. What does that mean, remain solvent?
On the long term, you have to be able to make money.
To be able to pay your
Yes.
debt. That's what remain solvent means. So now, that grant company, there are many other companies even today, they were good, they were making money, but they couldn't pay their debt when it was due. Maybe they had too many accounts receivable that they were not collecting on time. Maybe they had too many inventories that they were not selling. So that's what happened to them, and that's why SEC, Security Exchange Commission, came and said, hey, you know, you big guys, you big companies, not only you have to give us the information about your balance sheet and income statement, you also have to give us the cash flow statement. So I don't know, what are the rules? What are the rules here? What is equivalent to SEC in Slovenia?
Sorry,
What would be equivalent as SEC, Security Exchange Commission?
we call it like that.
SEC
We
to
call it Securities Market Agency.
Securities Market. So what are, do we have a stock exchange here? Okay, good. So what are their requirements? Do
I
they
found
require,
the stock exchange like 20 years ago actually.
great. Do they require all 3 statements or just 2 statements?
Sorry?
Do they require the companies
Yeah, sure.
all 3 statements?
Of course.
Balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow? Okay. So in America, they didn't require cash flow until about 25, 30 years ago. Then they started to
Well,
require.
actually, cash flow we don't require.
Oh, it's not required, okay. Okay. I'm not surprised.
But at least once per, okay, they have to report quarterly, okay?
Okay,
So quarterly results, like the States.
okay.
However, they have to publish the all accounts at the end of the year.
Right, right.
So there might be also cash flow
There
included.
might be cash flow.
But not, let's say, regularly,
Right.
quarterly basis, that's not there.
Okay. But it is a very important statement. Since we started that, I want to finish that. So these are the 2 major purpose of business. However, there are people that they include a 3rd one. Anybody can tell me what would be the 3rd one? Purpose of business. Make money, remain solvent. I give you a hint. It has something to do with social entrepreneurship. Social responsibility. Social responsibility. Okay? It's good to make money, but in what cost? You know, if you just, you know, keep polluting the air, polluting the rivers, polluting the noise pollution and all kinds of stuff, right? But then again, you have to think about that. If you're in a little village in Africa or somewhere that people are dying of hunger, do you worry about their health in terms of, you know, if you're polluting the river? Or you rather to have a factory there for people to have something to eat? Do you see what I'm saying? This is where that you have to use your judgment. So social responsibility is good, but then you have to use your judgment. However, there are people that they don't believe to these 2 at all. They say or certainly not this. They say the main purpose of business is just making money. You probably have heard of last name is Friedman. What is his first name? Famous Nobel Prize winner. That he says that he believes that, you know, I don't care. I don't
Which
care.
one? Which Nobel Prize winner? Economy?
Last name is, yes, economist, right.
Krugman?
Who?
Krugman?
No, Friedman, the first, oh my God, how can I forget that?
How many years ago?
Oh, long time ago. He's very famous. I hate when sometimes it happens that you don't remember something so important.
I don't know, Markowitz, Friedman.
Michael Friedman, did you say?
Friedman.
Friedman, exactly. And I'm looking for his first name. But anyway, Friedman is the most famous.
Milton Friedman.
He is the most.
Milton.
Is it Hilton?
Milton.
Milton Friedman. Thank you. That's it. He's the most famous economist all over the world. He says the only objective of business is this: making money. Of course, he's wrong. To me, he's wrong. But he won the Nobel Prize. So who am I to say that he's wrong? He won the prize. But anyway, those are the major objectives of business. Well, thank you for that question. So that brought a lot of discussion. Anything else?
One more thing, because remain solvent equals liquidity. And is it the same
That's
thing?
exactly the same as liquidity. Very
Right.
good. Remain solvent means liquidity. Correct. To be able, see, you
In
may.
the long run, you know,
That's right.
solvency is long run.
Right.
Right.
Liquidity is short run. Correct. Correct. Like for example, a liquidity ratio in financial analysis would be current ratio or acid test ratio. Current ratio is your total current asset divided by your total current liability. Now, acid test is even faster, better than that. That is only cash and prepaid item and marketable securities divided by your current liability. So those are very liquid. That determine that how quickly you can really pay your debt, because you pay your debt out of where? Out of you pay your current liability out of your current asset. So it makes sense to have that ratios. And solvency is also a little bit bigger than that long run overall. You may have a lot of, as I said, Grant was a perfect example. A lot of assets, a lot of inventory, but they're not good. You're not selling them. Or you may have in America especially, there are some people that they really are sales people, if you know what I mean. They push, you buy something that you don't even want it, right? But because they convince you. So there are people that they sell, right? So a company may have a lot of sales on account. In other words, everything is on credit. People don't pay cash. They buy, we pay later, right? So the company will end up having a lot of accounts receivable, right? So they show big sales. The income statement may look very healthy, but then they have a lot of accounts receivable that they cannot collect on time. Or, as you know, there is an account called uncollectible account expense. Uncollectible account expense is one expense among other expense in your income statement, because there are people that they don't just pay their debt. And then if that happens to be a lot, then the company will be really in trouble. So you don't want to be in that position. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, the opportunity.